All right. So good morning. My name, as you all know, is Daniela. I am one of the clinical psychologists at the Lighthouse, and I am very excited to be here with you guys today to talk about the secrets of a healthy mind. Now, first of all, I want to thank you all to take this hour for yourself and to be interested in our topics of conversation for us. Giving these workshops is a crucial part of our community service, of what we hold very close to our hearts, educating people, giving everyone a space of self-awareness and learning. So I really hope that today's webinar is going to be useful, is going to be able to give you a little bit of resources and knowledge as to how do I foster a healthy mind. So in today's webinar, I will be sharing a presentation with you all. You can ask questions in the chat box, and I will be more than happy to respond these questions at the end of our chat. I won't have access to these until we are done with our conversation today. So I hope that's okay for everyone. So I will go ahead and try to share my screen with all of you. Give me 1 second, please, while I try to share my screen. Here we go, and then we can, I think this is it. Hopefully all of you guys can see that. So today's topic is how to foster a healthy mind. Before we get started, I want to share with all of you a little bit about the Lighthouse. We are a mental health and wellness center down in Sakim. We are actually a clinic where we hold various different services such as psychotherapy, psychiatry, child and adolescent therapy. We have a lot of corporate services and trainings. We have activity therapy. We have workshops that we give the community on grief and on many different psychological topics. And we are actually the only accredited place in the UAE that gives mental health first aid training. Actually, in the last year and a half that COVID has been with us, we have found that this training has been extremely useful to help all of you in the corporate setting detect when someone has been struggling with a mental health illness and how to actually carry out a conversation with that person that is struggling. Sometimes it is tricky to even detect when that struggle is there. And so this training will give you the tools that you need to start a conversation, to assess if everything's okay, and then to refer to the appropriate person. We have lots of different support groups at the moment that you can also check out in our website if you're interested. So this is our team of about 30 clinicians. We come from all over the world. We have different expertise and different psychological interests, and this is how we are emphasized in our training. So some of us do cognitive behavioral therapy, some of us do ACT therapy, narrative therapy. There are different types of therapies that will be more appropriate to each person. So we have a match for everyone, basically. These are the different services that we have and how we serve the community. As you can see, a lot of it is community-based, if not all of them. We really feel proud of being able to feel closer to everyone in the community through these webinars and workshops and talks. So let's begin with why is it that we're talking about the secrets of a healthy mind and how to foster a healthy mind. And it really seems like we have begun to be in this era of overwhelmness. Right, many people's mental health has taken a toll due to COVID and due to the, circumstances that we're living in and the different really tragic events that have happened recently around the UAE and in the world. And the World Health Organization actually thought that depression was going to be the leading cause of disability in 2020. But the sad thing is that we actually hit that mark in 2015. And that means that a lot of our resources to detect mental health need to be upscaled, because this is a true illness that is affecting a lot of our employees, a lot of our colleagues, a lot of our families, and we need to learn how to detect depression and anxiety and be able to refer to the appropriate help as soon as possible. We need to have the earliest intervention. Now the WHO is saying that depression will be the leading cause of global burden by 2030. And you can imagine that the more people that are suffering with depression, the more leave of absence they will take from work, the less quality work will they be able to do, the less supported they're going to feel. And it is just going to be a moment of a lot of strain and stress. So let's actually begin by fostering healthy minds. And this is why the talk is today is going to be really important. So we want to begin by maybe showing you guys some facts, some myths around stress. We're going to go over some healthy habits that mitigate the effects of stress. And this is all evidence-based, the information I'm going to be sharing with you guys today. And then we're going to be talking about some practical tips as to how to master your stress effectively. So let's begin with some of the facts and myths about stress. When we actually give our brain a little bit of rest, a little bit of time to think, to reflect, we're actually consolidating learning, we're actually building reflective skills, we're building our insight, we're reducing the chances of feeling anxious, but all we need to find is time, and time is so precious, and all of our complaints usually is we don't have enough time. So throughout this presentation, we will show you what to do with that time and how to crave out time to foster your healthy mind. So let's start with these questions, okay? And the answers are right next to it. And I want to give you a little bit of the context of why the answer is either true or false. So some stress is good for me is actually true. And most people are surprised by that because we usually run away from stress. We relate stress to something negative. Anxiety, for instance, is seen as a negative emotion. But what we know through years of research is that each emotion is there for a reason. And we need to see it as something that is like a messenger from the environment that is going to tell us what we need to be doing. So some stress to a certain degree is going to be good for you. It is going to keep you alert. It is going to keep you concentrated. There's actually things like sports that actually surge your stress hormone. But when that hormone is surged and is actually amplified, your ability to concentrate and to deliver optimal results is going to be heightened. Now, as always, there is a threshold as to how much stress is good for me. And what we know is that a lot of stress, when we surpass that threshold, 75% of our chronic illnesses, physical illness, are due to our cognitive stress. So what we know is that there is a mind-body connection that's going on all the time. And whenever our mind is busy, whenever our mind is not well, our bodies are going to suffer and are going to pay the consequences of all of this. So we know that some stress is good, but we want to make sure we're not pushing it and we're not feeling overwhelmed by the stress that we're putting ourselves into. The next one is stress comes from events and circumstances, and that is actually false. And that's when I always get really big eyes for, because what we know, again, through research, is that stress actually comes from how we relate to those events and circumstances rather than the events and circumstances themselves. The way that we frame things in our mind is going to be playing a crucial role as to how stressed you're going to feel or not. Stress is the same for everyone. Absolutely false. We all have different ways of expressing our stress or feeling our stress in our bodies. Some of us don't notice our stress as easily as others. So there is a clear difference between the way that some of us experience stress and others do as well. You can't do anything about stress. It can't be avoided. Again, that is false. There's many ways where we can mitigate the amount of stress that we are going to experience in our life. It is true that there's some events that are going to be more triggering than others, but there are some tools that we will talk about at the end of the workshop that will help you mitigate the effects of stress, and therefore it can feel that the effects are a lot less strong rather than the ones that we are having and dealing with today. No symptoms means I have no stress. That is a big, big no-no. It is false. a lot of times our symptoms are not very conscious, and therefore we feel we're not stressed, but we are stressed. There is a hormone that is the cortisol hormone that actually, if we were to measure that cortisol hormone in your body, we would probably see it skyrocketed. And that doesn't mean that you are free from stress. We all at some point feel triggered, but what we want to do is to relate to those triggering events in a healthier way to reduce the impact of stress. Each person has methods of stress management that works for them. That is absolutely true. Usually people go and engage in therapy to cope with stress, to change the way they're framing their thoughts. Other people engage in sports, other people engage in hobbies, and all of these are different ways to reduce or cope with stress. Too much work causes stress. Again, it's false. It's the way that we are time managing. It is the stress. It is the way we are framing what's going on in our work that is causing us to feel stressed. I cannot perform my best unless I am stressed. That's also false. Sometimes we're addicted to stress and we feel there needs to be a need of pressure for us to deliver our best results. And that actually causes chronic stress disorder. And what we're trying to do is actually teach everyone different ways to time manage, relate to the stressful events, rather than feeling that they need that push to actually be productive. And lastly, which is another one that surprises my clients, is that the best way to cope with stress is to relax and breathe and meditate. And actually, that's not true at all. There's different ways in which we can reduce stress and manage stress. But when we breathe and we relax and we meditate, those are activities that will reduce that stress momentarily, but there needs to be a mindset shift for the stress to actually be reduced completely. If we are just breathing and relaxing and doing some mindfulness exercises, we are just going to put a Band-Aid over a wound. We're not necessarily really digging deep enough to challenge some of those core beliefs around success, productivity, work, seeking approval. And these are actually some of the core beliefs that are reinforcing what we call stress. So that's why coming to maybe a therapist or having someone to talk to and reflect over these things is going to be really, really useful. So if we think about our stress response, what happens to our bodies when we are stressed? So the first thing is that the nervous system perceives stress. There is maybe your boss is upset with you, your partner is upset with you, you have kids that, where you're feeling a bit overwhelmed and they're not listening to you. And then your brain sends a signal to the pituitary gland, which releases the ACTH hormone into your blood system. So all of this is physical. A lot of these responses, we're not even aware that they're happening at a certain point. And this is super important to know, because a lot of the times we're only sensing we're stressed when we are having our headaches, when we are feeling like our mind's going to explode, when our heart's beating really fast. But we need to acknowledge that actually there's a lot of work that's happening in our bodies way before we're feeling the heartburn or the fast heartbeat or the headache and what's so on, right? So then the adrenal gland releases the stress hormone cortisol, or the norepinephrine or the epinephrine in your body. And that is going to what's going to heighten those physical responses. In parallel to that, you're going to see that your hearing ability is going to increase, your pupils dilate, your respiration rate increases, and all of these physical symptoms are there for a reason. In developmental psychology, we know that anxiety is a safety mechanism, is a messenger that's telling you that you are at danger. So all of these physical responses that you're having are a typical response that you would have when you see a lion that's in front of you, or a life or death situation that you're in. And all of these different physical symptoms are actually going to keep you safe. Because if your eyes are dilated, you have more precision as to where you're going. If you're sweating, your weight actually reduces. if you are able to hear better, you're able to escape or to see things faster, hear things that are going to put you in danger. So all of these physical responses are actually there to help us. But when we interpret these physical responses as negative, then that's where our stress response begins. And when we give stress a negative connotation. So this first step is to invite you all to actually lean a little bit into these feelings of stress and actually think, what are they telling me? What about this situation is alarming me that I am in danger? What is it that I'm really caring about? What am I imagining the outcome to be? Am I catastrophizing? Am I jumping to conclusions? Am I thinking about the worst case scenario? Am I mind reading? What's going on with me that is causing my body to say, I need to keep you safe? So with chronic stress disorder, we have some symptoms that I want us all to be mindful of. And the first one is physical pains. And that might be with chest pain, back aches, arthritis, diabetes, high blood pressure, obesity, sleep problems, hair loss. Absenteeism is a very big one where you're at work, but not really at work. Your mind's somewhere else. You have an upset stomach. You're feeling extra tired constantly. Those might be the physical symptoms that we might even feel a little bit more prone to identifying. But what happens cognitively? You might not remember things. You might have poor judgment. You might lack focus. You might be anxious and constantly worrying about things, restlessness. These are things that will be happening again in parallel to the physical symptoms that you might be experiencing, but might not be as obvious to you. Emotionally, we also have some symptoms that are important to pay attention to. Are you more irritable? Are you more moody? Are you feeling more sad and depressed, maybe clinically depressed? Have you been not enjoying your life as you would normally in the last 2 weeks? Are you not eating well? Is your sleep lost? Are you losing appetite? Are you feeling overwhelmed or extremely insecure about your work? What is And then behaviorally, you might be rushing around, having angry outbursts. And these are also the type of symptoms that we might see. With the physical ones and the behavioral ones are the first ones that come out. And the emotional ones and the cognitive ones are the ones that we tend to ignore and not give importance to. But we want to really make sure that all of these symptoms are taken into account when we're thinking about our stress response, and then asking the big question, what was so triggering from that situation? Was I feeling insecure? Was I feeling unsafe? And why was I feeling so unsafe? Was there a fear of rejection? Was there a fear of not being seen or as important? Was there a fear of maybe losing my job and therefore not having the financial stability to support my family? There's an underlying fear behind all of this, which causes our mindset to be negative and for the stress hormone to be released and heightened. So what do we do? And most of us, when we're feeling this amount of stress, we go into unhealthy stress management skills. And a lot of us just try to ignore, put under the carpet all of these feelings and sensations, not talk about them, because talking about them might make you feel vulnerable or weak. And what we see is that we start then engaging in unhealthy stress management skills. And the reason why they're unhealthy is because they are not necessarily reducing or changing the mindset that started the stress response in the first place. So you might smoke, you might be under eating or overeating, zoning out in front of the TV for hours to stop thinking about something, withdrawing for friends and family, maybe taking some sleeping pills to relax, sleeping too much, procrastinating, taking out your stress on others, filling out every minute of the day to avoid facing problems. And when we think about these unhealthy stress management skills, again, they're a Band-Aid on top of a wound, and we're not necessarily really talking about what's going on for us. And the more we do these things, the less likely and the more stress we're going to feel, and the less likely stress is going to be reduced. So these are just some of the many things we do, even if even if we are working out. If we are working out to avoid thinking or to reduce your stress, the working out is not going to actually be effective. It might be effective for 30 minutes, for an hour, but then stress will come back up. So it really stems from the ability of reframing your mind and changing the core beliefs around the things that are causing you to feel stressed in the first place. So I want to introduce to you guys the Healthy Mind Platter. Now, these 7 things that I will be discussing have been studied again and again and again in different types of people, ages. And what we've seen is that these 7 things are actually core activities and things that we can implement in our day that can help us really build resilient minds and build a healthy mind. So the first one and the most important one in my eyes is sleep. And I can talk about sleep for hours, guys, but sleep is crucial. So many things are happening us in our sleep, so many things. And so our biggest sort of cure or medicine out of all of these 7 things that I will be explaining is sleep. We want to block the 7-8 hours of sleep at night. We want to actually create a sleep hygiene so that we are actually doing the type of sleep that we need to be doing. So it actually gives us a time to consolidate learning, to recover from the experiences of the day, to encourage memory gain, to build some insight, to regulate the temperature in your body, to de-stress your body, to bring oxygen all over your body. So physically and cognitively, it is one of the most important things that we need to be taking into consideration. So these are some of the benefits. You have tissue repair, you have memory processing, emotional regulation, you have thermoregulation. All of these things are happening physically while you're asleep. And it is the most significant thing that you can do for your brain and body. Now, there is a book that I'm going to recommend to you all. It's called Why We Sleep, and you're going to see so many tips as to how to sleep better, how to have a proper sleep hygiene, but most importantly, all of the wonderful things that our brain is doing while we're sleeping. The most effective time where we're going to get our deepest sleep is between 10 p.m. and 3 a.m. And this is called the slow wave sleep. This is the time that we really need to be going to bed, turning the lights off, stemming away from our blue light devices that are going to take away precious time for our sleep. We want to make sure that we are investing the right routines at night that will help you sleep and get this actually done. So what happens when you don't sleep? Well, the consequences are quite clear. There is a clear relationship between the lack of sleep and physical illnesses such as cancer, hyperglycemia, strokes, poor mental health. There's Alzheimer's, heart disease, diabetes, obesity. All of these things stem from the lack of sleep. But most importantly, your emotional deregulation will be there. We will not be able to regulate our feelings. We won't be able to be self-aware, and that will cause a lot of interrelational difficulties at work and in your personal life. Now, we live in a time where sleep is undervalued, and therefore most of the people that come into my practice are sleep deprived. We're sleeping less than 6 or 7 hours a night, and that becomes a huge, huge problem. So whenever I have a client come in, the first question I'm going to ask is, how are you sleeping? How was your sleep last night? That will have a big impact. And when we do the bottoms up approach, which is we're going to take care of our physical body first to then see how your cognitive mind works, we're going to realize that there's some basic things that we can do to actually prevent a lot of our moodiness and irritability to come into place. The next skill that I want to talk about is playtime. Now, this is a funny one where I get lots of raised eyebrows because as adults, we forget how to play. And what we noticed is that a few years ago in the World Economic Forum, the CEO of Lego started talking, and everyone was expecting him to be talking around, economics and trends and what was going on for that following year. But what we noticed is that after he went on stage and he started talking, he didn't actually address any of these things. And he gave everyone in the meeting room a little bag of Legos. And he just asked everyone to, for the next 5 minutes, to just sit and play with their Legos. And after a minute, everyone was laughing and sharing their little statues that they were doing with the Legos that they had been given. And it brought light and humor to the forum. And at the end, what we noticed is that your creativity starts to flourish when you allow some playtime. Your spontaneity starts to flourish when you allow some playtime. You're experimenting life. And a lot of the times we forget about it, but it's actually as important as sleep and rest and food and all the other beautiful things that we do give importance to. It allows us to give flexible emotional responses. It allows us to actually take the other person into consideration, to be a team player, to actually be aware of how you're feeling and how the other person's feeling. This is resilience, this is emotional intelligence, and it's done through play. So my question for you is, when was the last time you felt playful? Do you remember if over the weekend you had some playful moments? Did you feel that in the last month you had enough playful moments? If the answer is yes, kudos to you. That's amazing. If the answer is no, let's think about how we can include some playtime into our routine, whether it's the weekend, whether it's watching a comedy, a funny movie, maybe playing a board game, maybe jumping on a trampoline, maybe going to the beach and being silly with our kids. Whatever it might be that allows that inner child to come out is going to be beneficial. The next one we have is downtime. Downtime is actually disconnecting for a moment. You're not thinking. Our mind's always active, but downtime is literally not doing anything, with not having a specific goal, with not, wanting something out of an activity. It's letting your mind wander. And this is actually the hardest bit for a lot of us, where we have corporate jobs and your mind's always thinking and, thinking of to-do lists and trying to get all your goals achieved. Downtime is going to be the hardest, I would think. And this is intentionally not having an intention. So maybe blocking out 30 minutes of your early morning, and we're going to talk about that, conquering your morning, where you're just not doing anything. You might just have a coffee, you're sitting and you're enjoying your coffee, you're looking at the walls, you're looking out the window, you might be looking at a candle, and that can last a few minutes. Don't imagine 3 hours, 4 hours of this, but just some downtime. And what really helps with downtime is it helps you resolve problems. It really helps you focus on yourself. It helps you quiet your mind a little bit more. It's not a goal-focused activity, and a lot of our anxiety and a lot of our low mood stems from goal-driven behaviors that we have, and we're not actually connecting with our values, with the thing that actually makes us who we are. The caring Bob, the loving Billy, the funny Bob, the responsible Billy. We're not connecting with those values. We're just thinking about the to-do list, that the I need to lose the 5 kg at the end of the month, the I need to complete this amount of financial goals to get my bonus. That's all that's in our mind. And this downtime is the time to actually not have any focus whatsoever. It helps us with problem solving skills, creative solutions, better decisions. Now, again, this doesn't have to be for a long time. A couple of minutes, 5-10 minutes is enough. The opposite of this is time in. And time in actually has a goal. It has an intention. You are reflecting, you are attuning, you're engaging in a mindfulness or breathing exercise on purpose. So downtime is not doing anything or not having a clear goal, whereas time in is having some time for yourself. So this is what you would usually consider your self-care to look like. So it might mean that you are journaling. It might mean that you are doing some breathing exercises. It might mean that you are going to yoga. It might mean that you are coming to therapy. That's your time in. It's more than relaxation. It is awareness building. It's self-reflection. It's intentional. You are connected to your shadows. You're connected to your lights. You're getting to know yourself a bit better. That's what time in is all about. Now, all of these things that I've mentioned, again, have been researched and researched again as to how this really builds a healthy mind. Now, if we're concerned about time, it's just about acknowledging a couple of minutes for each thing, and that will be a good start. It's showing up for yourself that matters. You don't have to comply to do all these things all the time for long periods. If you do have the time to do that, great. But if you don't, we understand that it is difficult, but we are putting in the effort to crave out a couple of minutes for each thing. That is better than nothing. So please make sure that we're maybe writing some of these down so we can begin putting this into our life routine. Then we have some other ways of timing in, and these are some recommendations that we can give you. We have some 25-minute meditations of Dan Siegel on YouTube. We have some mindfulness exercises you can look into that of John Kabat-Zinn. We have some mindfulness bell exercises on YouTube as well. And you're going to find apps that we can discuss, such as Breathe, Calm, Headspace. These are all wonderful apps that do the exact same thing for a short period of time. So these are some ideas for all of you as to how to apply your time in. And then, of course, we have a really important one, which is connecting time. Connecting time is actually a really important factor in our life because we are social beings. We're beings that are always craving to fit in, a sense of belonging. We are always wandering around looking for different tribes that welcome us, that make us feel comfortable and safe and acknowledged and accepted. And this is one of the most powerful things that we can invest our time in as well. Connecting with other people, can actually stimulate your brain. It stimulates your cognitive growth, your empathy, your social skills, your problem solving skills. Everything will be definitely stimulated when you are connecting with others. So it has a threefold effect on stress. The first one is that it reduces the strains experience. You're sharing your experience with other people. Therefore, that shared stressor, it's going to be a shared stressor rather than you holding everything on your own. Number two, it will lessen the perceived stressors. You might resonate with someone, tell them, what you're going through, and then they might say something that make you actually have a different perspective of what's going on. So that's amazing. The third one is it moderates the stressor strain relationship. You're feeling like you're safe, you're vulnerable to talk to someone, you're not alone. And even if that stressor doesn't go away, someone's there to listen to you. So there was the longest psychological study in the world. Is called the Harvard Grand Study. And actually, this study shows that over and over again, after 3 and 4 years of checking in on people, and they had thousands of participants, they realized that one of the key components of happiness was the ability to connect with their tribe, to feel comfortable in their friend group. And this actually was more important than gender, financial gain, sexuality, what type of apartment you had, how much you earned at the end of the month. None of these factors were actually important in comparison to how connected they felt to the community, to their friends, to their family. So satisfying social relationships are associated with more positive outlooks at life, more secure attachments and interactions with others, and better mental and physical health. So as you know, there is a mind-body connection, and the more that we are coming to a group where we belong and we feel accepted and we can share our strains and our stressors, the more of a positive outlook you will have. Regardless of the different stressing situations you're living in, you're feeling supported. So this is why us being social beings, it is crucial to find a tribe that listens to you, helps you feel you belong, doesn't judge you, and understands you. Now, with WhatsApp groups and messages during COVID, I actually suggested for a lot of my clients when they were feeling triggered that it was okay to put boundaries to groups of people that are not letting you feel acknowledged or accepted. And there was lots of judgment and misunderstandings during this time of COVID, especially where, because we weren't able to travel, because Dubai had different regulations, because other parts of the world were suffering a lot more, and we would feel guilty and we wouldn't feel adequate. And, the people from abroad were not necessarily as supportive as we would like them to be, or even people here. And therefore, it is okay to put those boundaries and maybe distance yourself from those groups for a little while and find other people that really resonate with your needs and with your wants. And of course, we have physical time, right? This improves your brain plasticity. This improves and strengthens your body. This reduces the cortisol hormone. So it has a lot of benefits. It enhances your metabolism. It really helps you protect your brain from further damages that it might cause through illnesses or through accidents. You need to have at least 30 minutes of movement a day, or at least 5 to 10,000 steps a day. We want to make sure we're moving. At the end of the day, emotions are pocketed energy that need movement to actually, for them to be released and for them not to feel as heavy as they would otherwise. So we want to make sure that when we're working out, we know the impact of our workout. It's not about looking great or looking fit. It's really about taking care of our brain. It helps in your attention. It helps in your memory. It helps in critical thinking. It helps in your relationship with others. It helps you regulate your physical processes like metabolism and oxygen levels, and it reduces the chances of diabetes and cancer and all the really difficult sicknesses or illnesses that we know of. And the sad thing is that when we have a very sedentary job, for every 2 hours spent sitting down in front of a computer or a television, the average person rises his or her risk of colon cancer by 8%, of endometrial cancer by 10%, and lung cancer by 6%. So just sitting down 2 hours in front of a computer or TV is so detrimental. So how can we compensate that sitting down with movement? This is the big question. We want to make sure that we know how sitting down is really detrimental for our health, and it's actually more detrimental than smoking. So this is a little alarm for all of us that are just sitting behind our computer screens, and just to encourage you to really find ways of movement, getting your coffee breaks, going down the stairs and for walks for colleagues, maybe working out in the morning or in the evening after work if you had some time, running some errands around your building, walking, encouraging you to stand up and to do some movement will be key. And then, of course, we have our focus time, and this is our attention management or performance. This is actually what we do at work, our focus time. But this requires a strategy, because we can't be focusing for more than 45, 50 minutes at a time. Even though we might think we can, we cannot. Our attention starts to wander elsewhere, so we need to know how to manage our focus time. And it actually requires mastery, and it requires skills. And one of the things that I would recommend for all of you to apply when we're thinking about focus time is block out 45, 50-minute chunks of time in your schedule to do a task. Start out with the hardest task first. That will take you a longer period of time. After those 45, 50 minutes, take a 5-10-minute break. Active break, move around, get a cup of coffee, go for a walk, check your email standing up, do something outside of that task for those next 5 to 10 minutes, and then come back to the 45, 50 mark of engaging in another task. We are not good at multitasking. We think we are, we're really not. Our attention is not the same where we're multitasking. Our quality of work is not the same. Our working memory has limited capacity. It cannot process multiple sources of information at the same time. So we continuously switch our spotlight, our flashlight, of attention back and forth between different stimuli, we're really not going to be as effective and as productive as we want to. So sustaining attention or staying focused is a function of self-control. And this means if I don't have the self-control to be focused for 45, 50 minutes, maybe I need to reduce that amount of time before, and then I can expand it to 45 and 50 minutes, and that's okay. If I need more breaks, that's okay. But let's focus on how you're focusing so you can become more productive and reduce the amount of stress perceived. So how are we going to invest time in ourselves? Because this is a toolbox. These are some of the strategies that I would definitely give you to practice on a recurring basis to help you cope and manage stress. Number one is we need to practice some breathing exercises. Breathing is the antidote of stress. We are regulating bodily symptoms of stress while we're breathing. It is not the cure, but it's a good strategy to have. So I want all of you to research elevator breathing, which is just how to deep breathe. When we're anxious, when we are overwhelmed, we tend to breathe from our chest up. We're not breathing from our belly up. And that's a huge problem because it just promotes more anxiety and more cortisol hormone to be released in our brain. Secondly, we make a lot of to-do lists, and these to-do lists are actually not very helpful. They make us feel overwhelmed. So I would invite you all to have something called time allotting, where you have your schedule and you write down all of the activities, as silly and as small as they are, in your schedule. So you know exactly how you're dividing your time and what you're spending your time on. If you're only spending time at work and doing work-related things, you will lose motivation, you will be burned out, and you will not feel that life is actually the life that you want to live. You're not investing in yourself. Remember, we have these 7 things that we want to actually put in your diary, allocate some time to do, so you feel more grounded and more at ease and really feeling like you're investing time in things that matter. We want to make sure that we're using these apps that I had talked about earlier, the Headspace, the Calm, the Breathe app. If you want to fast 5 minutes, 10 minutes time in activities, you can definitely resort to those. We want to make sure as well to take away your lunch, not eating at your desk. Do not eat in front of the computer. Step away, change in background, change in scenery. Make sure you're using those active breaks in your benefit. We don't want to have these breaks in your setting where you are already perceiving a lot of demands and expectations. Make sure your breaks are elsewhere. Make sure you're eating things that encourage the production of serotonin, like blueberries, oranges, chewing gum. These are just some foods that actually promote the production of serotonin, which compensate the production of cortisol. And a gratitude journal. At the end of the day, write down some of the positives that happened during the day. We have a tendency of focusing only on the negative events because that's how we are trained to be. Anxiety actually is there for that reason, to keep you safe. So it's always going to be hyper vigilant of the negative events that are going around us, happening around us. So how can we then switch that attention to maybe after a hard day, what actually went well? Even if it was the warm shower in the morning, or the yummy breakfast that you had, or the nice catch up with a friend within that really difficult day, can we highlight that? So a gratitude journal will be something I would recommend you beginning. And of course, if you're interested, coming to a space like this where it's one-to-one, confidential, safe place where you're resonating your ideas with someone is also a really good idea, and how to invest time in yourself. All right, everyone. These are other things that we can do. Feel free to take a picture of this slide. This is how we can have some sleep hygiene, routines, ideas of how to play, how to have some downtime, physical activity, time in, focus time, investing time in yourself, connecting time. These are just some ideas, like a little brainstorming session that I've had with some of my clients, and maybe you can add some more to this list. If you think of ways in which you can play or which you can connect, feel free to expand this list The idea is to give you a little bit of a teaser of things that you could do, and to, almost reassure you that you have control over the mindset that you have and the core beliefs that you have that can reduce or mitigate the effects of stress. When health is absent, wisdom cannot reveal itself. Strength cannot fight, wealth becomes useless, and intelligence cannot be applied. I love this quote. It really emphasizes the importance of overall health, where we're not just focusing on physical health anymore, we're really focusing on your mental health as well. All right, everyone. So this is a little bit of an idea of how to, track the different habits, that are the different skills that I've been talking about today. How to track your focus time. What did you do? A good way of changing habits is by tracking them. So this is just an idea of a tracker for you. And then this is the information on our mental health first aid training. I'm really, really encouraging all of you to have this training. You have no idea how important it is to recognize mental health in others and learn how to talk to someone with mental health issues, problems, struggles. So reach out if you want to participate. We're holding these trainings every month. We actually can hold them for corporates as well as a big group. So feel free to reach out if you're interested in this. We also have our social media portals. If you want to join us on Instagram, LightHouse Arabia, we have our managing director's Instagram, where she posts a lot of really useful information. Her name is Dr. Salaha Afridi. So feel free to look at all of our social media portals, our websites for more support group information, events that are coming up that are free of cost for you. And I really hope this session was useful. I am going to answer some questions at this time. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen and answer some of these questions for you. By the way, this is being recorded, and the idea is for this to be sent out to all of you so you can share with your family and friends who you think would benefit. All right. Did you guys hear me okay? I was looking at the ones, comments saying you couldn't hear me, which was unfortunate. What is the period that you suggest we connect to other people, like every once a week, daily basis? So these 7 habits are, think about them as crystal balls. They're things we don't want to let go of. And we don't want these 7 things to be balanced, because that is not feasible. It's not realistic, but we don't want to drop the ball. So if you haven't connected with someone in a week, I will suggest please connect with someone once a week, at least. If you can connect with someone once a day, great. But I would suggest just make sure you're not dropping the ball on any of them. So there's not an exact number of times where you should be connecting with people or doing all of these suggestions, but it's about notice how you're balancing these 7 things rather than keeping them balanced. Yes, we can email you the template as well. All righty, let's continue reading. The stress response, chronic stress, unhealthy stress management are well explained. Thank you, guys. Yes, we will be sending you the recording via email. No worries. And how do you know that you're stressed? So initially I showed you some of the symptoms, some physical symptoms, emotional symptoms, cognitive symptoms. So make sure that you look over that list and identify how maybe you relate to these symptoms. A lot of the times we'll feel more prone to identifying our behavioral symptoms and our physical symptoms rather than the emotional and the cognitive ones. So I will encourage all of you to please take a look at the cognitive and emotional symptoms that are a little bit more subtle, but just if not more important than the other ones. Yeah. So someone is asking, can I divide sleep time, like 2 hours midday, 5 hours a night? No, we cannot. We have to have the 7 to 8 hours per night because the REM sleep is happening from 10 to 3 a.m. and we really need that REM sleep to happen. So if we're just breaking it down from 2 to 5 hours, we're not allowing that REM sleep cycle to kick in. How can we manage stress before healing wounds? So I would say we need to actually heal wounds before we manage stress, because a lot of these wounds are triggering our stress, these core beliefs, these ideas about how the world should function. Maybe the fear of rejection or the need of approvals there, and is causing our stress response to be heightened. So I would actually search ways to work on that first. That will definitely keep your stress response to be better at the end of the day if we work on these. Is 9 to 10 hours of sleep still not healthy? What bad effect does it pose? So 9 to 10 hours of sleep is not necessarily unhealthy. What we know is that too much sleep, though, will cause you more fatigue. So I want you to track whether those 9 to 10 hours of sleep are causing you to feel sleepier during the day. If so, then it would mean we would need 7 to 8 hours. But if not, and you're working fine, operating fine on 9 to 10 hours a night, that's even better. That's great. I'm really jealous that you're getting 9 to 10 hours of sleep, actually. Would redecorating help our mental health? If so, how often should we do this? So yes, your space is your sanctuary. So essentially your idea of redecorating the space is healing and cleansing a space that's charged with energy. And remember, emotional illnesses or baggage is clogs of energy. So we need movement, we need fresh things in our rooms, we need nice smelling candles, we need we might need nice pictures, nice colors on the wall. So please feel free to redecorate. I would actually really encourage your room specifically to be redecorated and feeling like a safe place. How can we be in control of our stress and anger if not with breathing? How can we control our stress and anger if not with breathing? So it's not about, remember, it's not about control. I think control is what's causing you to feel more anxious. It's about recognizing what core beliefs are behind your stress and your anxiety. What am I fearful of? What am I expecting? Why is this important to me? And when you get to that answer, you can then work around how to change those core beliefs if you would like to. And you can use breathing and exercise and all the other things we talked about as tools, but not as solutions. I sleep for 8 hours, but feeling sleepy, lazy all day. Is this a symptom of stress? It could be. And we want to make sure to know how you're time managing. Are you feeling overwhelmed with your to-do list? Are you feeling like there's no time to do all the things that you had planned? So maybe time allotting might be a good strategy for you, where you are noticing what you're spending your time on. If it's only work-related things, most likely that will be causing you demotivation and tiredness and laziness. Whereas if you invest time in yourself during the day, you can see a huge change in your mood. Hi, doctor. You mentioned that 2 hours of sitting down in front of a computer can risk colon cancer. What can we do if there's 10 to 15 minutes exercise? How if we do a 10 to 15 minute exercise or spend time by walking in between? Maybe if I understand correctly, what you're saying is how can we prevent this? So I would say walking your 45, 50 minutes section of focus time, you're sitting down and then you're walking around for 5 to 10 minutes. That's good enough. Then you focus again for 45, 50, then you take another active break, and that will compensate for the long hours that you're sitting behind a computer screen. Okay, guys, I'm sorry, I don't have more time, but let me answer 2 more maybe. If stress is about how one reacts to the situation, does this mean that the toxic person is just a myth? This is a longer answer for me. No, it's not a myth. There is such thing as toxic people, where they are portraying a lot of their insecurities on you. And this is what we call in psychology transference and counter-transference. If I'm feeling insecure and I'm needing a lot of reassurance from you, and I am maybe criticizing or becoming aggressive or becoming extra needy, you're perceiving me as a toxic person, because that's getting in the way of your productivity, most likely. And that person is not regulating him or herself with the insecurities that they have. So it's all about inner work, really. What triggers me? What are my fears? How can I detect that I'm feeling vulnerable or jealous or rejected or invalidated in my work? And how can I work on myself? And I think it starts from that rather than labeling that person as toxic. It could be, but we need to start with us first. Okay, guys, I hope that this was a good Q&A session. Again, thank you so much for coming in today and joining us in this webinar. And I hope that you found this webinar extra useful. I'll speak to you guys soon. Bye-bye.